The U.S. announces its largest ever sanctions package on North Korea. The U.S. Treasury Department says the new sanctions target 27 companies and 28 vessels. It added that the measures are aimed at stopping shipments of oil from reaching North Korea. Washington has also warned that it will impose sanctions on those who enable shipping to and from North Korea. Meanwhile, the U.S. President Donald Trump has said that if sanctions on Pyongyang don't work, Washington will have to go to, quote, phase two, which he described as very unfortunate for the world.
If the sanctions don't work, we'll have to go phase two. And phase two may be a very rough thing, may be very, very unfortunate for the world. But hopefully the sanctions will work. I want to go to Washington. I want to help.
Trump made the remarks at a press conference with the visiting Australian Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull. The U.S. President added that his administration's strategy towards North Korea is strongly supported by the global community. Pyongyang is already under a host of international and U.S. sanctions over its nuclear and missile programs. The North says that it needs the programs to deter any U.S. aggression. The latest U.S. sanctions come at a time when North and South Korea are trying to ease the tensions on the Korean Peninsula. Jason Unruhe is a political commentator and analyst joining us from Ontario. You have this threat coming from Donald Trump after announcing the sanctions at a time when obviously you have this warming of relations between the North and the South, which puts into question why the U.S. is acting so aggressively when it comes to the North at this juncture.
Well, I think it's definitely a result of the fact that the North and the South have definitely worked together to try to warm relations between the two while excluding the United States from it. I mean, it's very obvious from looking at the Olympics that the U.S. was left out of this whole situation. While the relations were warming between the two countries, the U.S. was frowning upon it the entire time, trying to even sabotage that goodwill that's going on between the two countries. But that didn't really have any effect. And the U.S. ended up looking rather foolish on the world stage, that while they continued to insist that they wanted a peaceful situation on the peninsula, yet there they were trying to ruin that exact kind of mood that the DPRK was actually offering towards the South in their cooperation together. So I definitely think that there is a great deal of anger coming out of the U.S. that the North and the South are beginning to look for a peaceful way to coexist together, while it's the U.S. who really does want the North to be destroyed.
Do you think that the U.S. is going to stop with these sanctions, or what are we looking at? Because at this point, it almost seems as if it's many say that it is counterproductive, the approach that the U.S. has. At the same time, we have these drills that the U.S. and South Korea are going to do at some point again.
Well, I definitely think that these sanctions are going to hurt. Anytime you try to restrict the amount of fuel or energy going into any country, there's a great impact that they're going to suffer as a result. But the DPRK has been willing to suffer a great deal more in order to maintain their independence. So I don't see this working in the long run of making them crack and having them end up bowing to U.S. pressure inside the country. Because if the DPRK has proven anything, is that it's willing to go to whatever lengths necessary in order to maintain its independence. And I definitely think that this is really more of a kind of desperation tactic on the side of the United States. The worst sanctions ever are showing that previous actions did not work, and that the DPRK has been struggling through quite bravely, I might add.
Very well, thank you for that, Jason Unruhe, political commentator and analyst from Ontario.